Record this as well. All right, so we're officially recorded. So, guys, I'm not going to do a lot of talking because we got a gentleman tonight. I'm just going to go ahead and forewarn y'all right now. I'm just going to forewarn you right now. I just met this guy here about 5 days ago, and I'm gonna drop a little bit how I just met him a few minutes ago, but he inspired me. So it was in a matter of minutes. I said, man, you got to come to my community, man, on Wednesday for our Wealth Wednesdays, and you got to come and speak to my community because his mind frame is different than every person that's on this call tonight. It's different. All right. So first of all, I want to thank you guys for joining in here to the Wealth Wednesday session. Here we have the Real Chevy here with us. He is just a gem and a wealth of knowledge into real estate. But let me get into introduction on him really quick, and then how I met him, and then we're going to turn the floor over to him. So the Real Chevy, this guy here has got into real estate starting in 2018. He went full-time into real estate in 2019. That's him and his wife. I didn't just say him. I said him and his wife went full-time into real estate in 2019. One of the most important things about this young man right about here that's different than anybody else on this particular call is this man right here and his family owns 25 doors. That composes of duplexes, that composes of triplexes, and that composes of single family homes. Now, let me just say this here really quick. The reason why I say that's different than most people that's on this call here, than any other person on this call, is because 99.9% of us work a 9 to 5. This guy right here retired his mom from working because of the decision that he made with real estate in itself. Now, let me just say this here real quick, Chevy, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. Most people come to me and let's say, for instance, if they said they had a high income of $300,000, right? That sounds very impressive to them, but to me, that's not impressive as a financial educator because I know what happens with a person that makes $300,000 that does not have financial literacy, right? They're going to spend $260,000, they're going to spend $270,000 of that, right? And it's not going to be a lot of money left. If they lose their job, that money goes away. But what you're doing and building assets through real estate, you're building a legacy. So if something happens to you, guess what's going to happen? Your kids, your grandkids, and their kids are going to continue to reap some of the benefits and decisions that you make in a day in the real estate assets that you and your wife is building. So that's why it was important for me to get to know you a little bit more, to bring you onto this community. And guys, check this out. Let me just share this with you really quick. It's a guy right now on this webinar. His name is Moses. He was one of my best friends I was in the military with. I was playing with my kids on Saturday at flag football, and he hit me and said, hey, look, man, I'm in Fort Lauderdale. And so he was from Atlanta. Him and his wife made a quick decision to fly down here to Fort Lauderdale. He went to breakfast with Chevy. He didn't know Chevy. And he texted me later on the day and said, hey, look, man, can we do dinner? I said, hey, absolutely. Let's do dinner. He also texted me and said, hey, look, I just met this one couple, man, for breakfast. Do you mind if they come to dinner as well? Guys, that's where I met Chevy. That's the power of connectivity. That's the power of networking. When you find out someone that's in the same circle of you, right, or that's elevated in another level, you need to stay connected with them. Because if you hang around 4 broke friends, you're going to be that 5th broke friend. If you hang around 4 millionaires, you're going to wind up being that 5th millionaire. That's the problem with our generation today. We don't have enough people in our particular families that have financial literacy. And this is what the Real Chevy have, financial literacy, because he can bring it to you. Get your notepads, get your pens, because he coming to give it to you. Without further ado, the Real Chevy, man. Welcome to the Let's Win Financial Community, brother.
If I had a background where it was clapping and cheering, I would have thrown that on, man. You're the host, you not throwing the chairs and the claps, man. Come on, man.
Absolutely, man. First of all, man, thank you for joining in to the community, man. We're excited to have you. We do a lot of classes and webinars, but we're excited just to have you, man. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. I do enough talking as it is, and turn it over to you. Yeah.
You know, before I dive in, guys, I want to let y'all know that I'm not a realtor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. I have no professional license whatsoever. I'm just an investor. My wife and I, we've actually been selfpreneurs, right? This is where there's no employee involved. We've run our own business Since I graduated from St. Peter's University, 2009 or 2010. It took me quite a bit of time to graduate. I was more so there for other stuff, not the educational stuff. It took me quite a while to actually graduate from St. Peter's University. I actually graduated with a D plus or something like that. Like that, I was graduating with bare minimum. So one thing they say is that the A and the B students always work for the C and the D students, and all that means is that a lot of times we're so book driven, but we're book smart, but we're not street smart. Meaning everything has to be by the book, so we take less risk in life. Well, for myself, graduating from St. Peter's University in 2010, I have ran a business over the past decade plus to where I've never really had an employee. My first job was with Sharon Williams, and I didn't even last 90 days there. I actually wound up quitting because I was like, the job is too long. And what I decided to do was I decided to go into into the car business. So I decided to actually join one of my high school teachers. He was running a car lot, and I decided to join him in actually running his car business. So what happened is his car lot was on the corner, and I was able to actually take his car business from just a regular, small car business to where we was doing high end cars. We was doing used cars, women cars, where if you drive the car off the lot, you're bringing it back in 5 minutes, and he's like, no money back. To where actually growing into a legit business. Well, I worked with him from 2010 to 2011, and it didn't pan out. Situations happened to where, that's when I saw ad on Craigslist about looking for someone that's sports minded, self driven. It was a management training program with Direct TV, and it was a third party company called Smart Circle that was partnering with Direct TV to hire people, and that was 2011. So what happened is 2011 is that I went from living in New Jersey to the end of 2011. I wound up leaving New Jersey after this being in this job management training program for a year, and actually traveling to Memphis. I've never been to Memphis ever. And after going to Memphis, it was probably about 2012, November of 2012, where I was inside of Sam's Club and I was working, and I met my wife's sister at the time. I didn't know nothing about my wife, but her sister was like, "Hey, are you single?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm single." And she gave me her sister's number, and I called her, and that same day I was like, "Okay, this is gonna be my wife." It was crazy how it happened. It was like it was just crazy, and that's how I met my wife. So I met my wife in 2012, and we've just been holding each other down the past 10 plus years now, because she was working at CVS, but I was an entrepreneur. I was just working with DirecTV in a management training program. So we spent a year. I spent several months in Memphis. Then I moved back to New Jersey. Once I moved back to New Jersey, what happened is that moved back to New Jersey, had no money in my bank account, and I was still working with DirecTV, and I wasn't seeing no traction just because of how my work ethic is. I would always outwork someone, and they always frowned upon that. Like, man, you're doing too much. Where I can't see myself being a business owner and working that hard for myself. When you have a business, you're not supposed to work, and that's people's mindset. It's like, well, when I have my own business, why do I need to put in the effort to grow my business? But it's the exact opposite. When you have your own business, you have to put in the work, because it's like having a brand new baby. You have to nurture it. You have to grow it. You have to make sure that it's where it needs to be. So stayed with DirecTV for 7 years, up until 2018. and my business was still not where it needed to be. So I decided to close that door, close that chapter in business, and actually venture off into real estate. And the reason why I ventured into real estate is because my wife mentioned that, she had saw someone on Facebook, one of her friends from her hometown of Memphis, that was doing real estate. And her friend was saying that you could do real estate with no cash and no credit. And I looked and I was like, man, get out of here. What you mean? What you mean? You can sell houses? You gonna go sell houses? And she was like, no, we don't have to sell no houses. She's saying that we can actually do real estate with no money and no credit. And I'm like, and my interest peaked. And I said, okay, I got to find out about how you're able to do real estate with no money and no credit, and you don't need no realtor license. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense, because all my life I've been told that in order for you to own something, you have to have money to buy it. But here, it's a complete opposite. In order to own something, you don't need the money to buy it. So I had to venture off into understanding what that means. And I stayed up. I was up binge watching YouTube till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, because I decided that my business, which was DirecTV at the time, wasn't doing so well. So I had to close that chapter, and I had to start something new, completely different, that I didn't know about. Well, the thing about me is that if it's something that I set my heart to, I'm going to go hard, and nothing is going to stop me. So I decided to really dive into the world when it comes to real estate itself, and that's how my real estate journey started. So my first year, my first year in real estate was part time, and how I found how what happened is that I spent my last $150 on some bandit signs. I'm sure you guys see those signs where it's like your "We Buy Houses" signs all over your city. And y'all, if you're not in real estate, you're not thinking about it. But if you're in real estate, you're like, I wonder whose sign that is. I wonder if that person is a buyer or if that person is just a wholesaler looking for deals, right? So my first year in real estate was part time, and when I decided to fully commit myself and go full time, which was 2019, my first year full time, we did 65 transactions, and that was just strictly not using no money, none of our own money, and not having no credit. Because in 2019, honestly, guys, my credit was at a 545 in 2019. Now it's at a 698. So it's grown over the past several years. But I didn't have the credit. I didn't have the money, but I had that work ethic. I had that know-how when it comes to just going hard, no matter what it took to find success. And 2019 was a game changer for us, because what happened is we went from where we were working with corporate, which was DirecTV, where we was barely making any money, and deciding to close the chapter to where we're going from not making no money at all. So we're barely making money, and deciding, like, you know what, let's pivot and do something different to where we're not making any money. So to keep the bills afloat, I would drive from Shreveport, Louisiana to Dallas, Texas every day just to do Lyft. So that's 3 hours to Dallas, and then another 3 hours back. So I would wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, drive to Dallas. I would do Lyft until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and drive back to Shreveport, get home by like 1 or 2, go to sleep, wake up, do the same thing all over again until the real estate business really got going. And the reason why I was doing that, guys, because one of the things that I've embedded in myself is that, I'm sure a lot of you guys have have your I'm sure a lot of you guys have your jobs and have your obligations. One thing that I always said to myself is that if I'm going to work hard for somebody to build their dreams, why not make the sacrifice to work hard for my family and myself to build our own dreams? So this way we can create wealth and generational wealth. And that's how, we discovered that real estate was the vehicle that was going to give us those time freedom to do what we want to do when we want to do it with whoever we want to do it with. The real estate have given us just a complete game changer as far as when it comes to really living a life that we want to live, right? And the biggest part about real estate is that when you know something, you do better. When you don't know, you lack the knowledge, you stay in the unknown. So understand, guys, that in real estate, there is a such thing as making money with none of your own money or credit. We call that OPM. And if y'all don't know what that means, that just means other people's money. And how we utilize other people's money is that we're able to find deals doing wholesaling, and we're able to find deals doing subject to. So I'm going to explain both of those different strategies to you guys. If you guys haven't heard about wholesaling in itself, wholesaling is strictly where you're playing a middleman. So you're finding a property that's in distress, might not be in distress. There's different situation that comes with that. But you're finding property to where you have a seller that wants to sell their property, right? You're not a realtor, you don't have no license, you're just an investor. So when you put a property on a contract with a seller, you're not selling a property, you're selling your rights and your interests into the paperwork that you put together. So you're selling the rights and interests of the contract on the house itself. So you have a contract with a seller, let's just say for 100,000, and you find an end buyer, someone with the actual cash, right? OPM. So you find someone with the actual cash, and let's just say they're going to buy the house for 120,000. So now you have two contracts. You have one with the seller, and you have one with the actual buyer. Once again, you're the middleman. You have no cash, you have no skin in the game. But what? Just the paperwork. So you take these two paperwork. You bring them to a title company or closing attorney, and what they do is they facilitate to where they cut a check for the difference, which is called an assignment fee. They cut a check for a difference of the $20,000 because 120 minus 100 is 20,000. They cut a check for the difference, and they pay you just for finding a seller and a buyer and bring them both to that title company. That's wholesaling. So you're not selling the property. You're not a realtor. All you're doing is you have equitable interest. Once you put a property on a contract, you have equitable interest within that property or the paperwork itself. So you're now assigning over your rights and interests to someone else. So that's the wholesaling piece in itself. Any questions about that, or should I wait to the end for the questions, Cheryl?
Yeah, I would say this here. If anybody want to chime in, if you have any questions, you can now, or if not, we will take some questions towards the end. Based off what the Chevy has mentioned so far, does anyone have any questions at this particular point on what he has stated in regards to wholesaler and the real estate game in itself, where he's at?
Yeah, hey there, Cousin. It's me, CC. So, Chevy, very nice to meet you. So, you're talking about, I have a little bit of experience with wholesaling. So, but when you're talking about like the title company and the lawyer and stuff, are there ways in which you go about vetting these two types of entities, finding the right lawyer, to really kind of do this, and also finding the right title company? What are some tips of the trade that you look for in actually vetting these?
That's great. That's a great question. One of the things that we do is we whenever we're vetting a title company or a lawyer, we always ask them, do they understand assignments? That's the biggest thing. Are they investor friendly? Do they understand assignment of contracts? If they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, I'm moving on to the next one. Because a lot of times, a lawyer, a closing attorney, or a title company, if you say, hey, do you understand the assignment of contract? They're going to be like, yes, I understand. And I'll just keep it pushing. So I'm asking, hey, do you understand how to do assignment of contract? Have you ever done any deals like that before, like any transactions like that? And have you ever worked with any wholesalers in your city? Because we do virtual wholesaling as well. So once we get a property on the contract, I'm literally calling title companies. And a lot of times too, whenever you have a buyer for your deal, understand that the buyer that's an investor a lot of times have their title company that they actually work with, and they actually done one or two deals with a wholesaler as well.
So Chevy, we also have and this good information. We also have another question here in the chat. Is how do you find these buyers or sellers that are willing to work with wholesalers?
So one of the reason why I say wholesalers because that's a familiar term that everybody is familiar with. Understand that you're an investor. You're not a wholesaler. You're an investor yourself. So when you're going in a deal, you're not telling the seller, "Hey, I'm a wholesaler." You're an investor. You have investing partners. So you have partners that you partner up with that actually bring cash to the closing table. So that's how I'm educating the seller when it comes to actually negotiating the deal. So I don't go in saying I'm a wholesaler. I'm gonna take up your property. I'm gonna sell it to somebody. I'm gonna sell my contract to somebody else. I always go in and saying, "Hey, look, Mr. Seller, I know you have a certain situation that's going on. I'm an investor, and I have investing partners that I'll partner with that we're able to actually we're actually able to bring cash to the closing table and help you get out of your situation." So how do you find sellers? There's people that's on Craigslist that's selling their home. There's people that's on Zillow that's selling their home. You can actually drive looking for properties locally in your area. You can actually go on OfferUp. There's plenty of different social media sites that you could go on, but you can also just do driving in your local area. How do you find buyers? There's people that's doing constructions. There's people in local Facebook groups that's actually looking to buy something. Not only that, but within the community, there's people that maybe have a nest egg that's sitting around and they're looking to actually spend some type of cash on a house. Someone is looking to actually get into buying their first asset, and they're looking for their first deal. So that's probably going to be one of your most profitable buyer, because if you're seasoned, you could walk them through the process. I've had many buyers that's brand new to buying their first property that I've actually educated on how to actually go about getting funds for their deal, whether that's through the banks, because the banks are going to lend at a certain percentage based on the market value of a property when it's fixed up. There's hard money lenders that's going to lend, but there's a higher interest. There's private money where people have their 401k. They have their nest egg. They have all types of savings to the way that's just sitting in the bank. Instead of having the money in the bank, I've always educated people on, hey, why don't you invest a certain amount of money where you could get a percentage back on your investment, ROI. So that's what we talked about. So yeah.
So Chevy, so now as we kind of talk about this here, right? So let's talk about some applications, right?
Okay.
Can you walk us through maybe one of your last transactions as a wholesale process, or maybe one of your most successful processes as far as your money that you invested and the amount of money that you made on it? Walk us through the application process of it. So we got the information, but walk us through the application of it now.
Okay, so application of it. I'll go through a transaction I'm doing right now. Waiting on it to close. Should close next week. going through what is called probate. So with probate, that's where someone passed away and the property is inherited by a particular person, or maybe there's more than one person that's involved. And what they do is they go to the courthouse and they have to do a succession. The succession now have it to where there's someone that's responsible for the estate, right? So that's maybe the administrator or the executor or the executrix. So they're responsible for all of the deceased affairs. And what I did was I went on the courthouse, the local courthouse, county clerk courthouse, and simply type in probate or succession. Some of it is free, some of it you have to pay for. It all, it just all depends on where you're at. And what I was able to do is I found that person's information. I now had to call that individual, right? So when I call people, I don't know about what they have going on. All I'm doing is I'm just calling and I'm just asking them, hey, I'm calling in reference to 123 Main Street that I think that you own, and wanted to see, have you ever considered selling the property? Are you taking any offers on the property? Now, mind you, there is at least a good 200-300 calls that's made before you actually find someone to say yes. This particular deal that I'm working with, I called a person in August. Nothing happened. They was cleaning out the property. Called them, followed up with them in September. No answer. Followed up with them in October. No answer. Followed up with them in November. No answer. Followed up with them in December. I'm always following up with people. So the lady finally called me in January and said, hey, look, I'm ready to sell. I said, yeah, I've been calling you. She said, well, hey, you've been calling the house and you didn't have my cell phone number, but here's my cell phone number. So once that happened, right, you have to know your market and what a buyer is buying at. Meaning there's a certain amount that a buyer is willing to spend on a property that's going to make sense for them, or where they are able to go to the banks and actually get money for that property. So this particular transaction, the seller wanted $180,000 for a property, and this is a virtual deal, by the way. This is a deal that was done in Shreveport, where I was at recently. So I trained a couple guys locally in Shreveport. So I called up one of them and I said, hey, look, I need for you to go and take a look at a property for me. So this way I can negotiate to see where can we be at. What I was able to do is actually call up the buyer, and knowing what he's buying at, I was able to get a price out of him. So he wanted the property at $100,000, and the seller wanted $180,000. So a lot of times depends on the area. It doesn't make sense, right? But this particular area, I had built a great relationship with the seller, and it was 6 people, and they all wanted $30,000 each. And the property was in disarray. It was from the 50s. So I told the seller, I said, hey, look, $180,000 is a stretch because of the area and because of the work that needs to be put into the property and what we'll be able to sell it at. Honestly, we really need the property at $60,000. And wow. I had to educate her though that, hey, what you guys want is unrealistic. For the area, the $180,000 that you're asking for is, yes, if the property is fully fixed up, rehab, that's what the property will sell for all day. But in that it do need work and it's outdated, it's going to need at least $60,000 to $70,000 worth of rehab. If I'm giving you $180,000 and putting $60,000 into the property, there's no profit. That doesn't make sense. That's business suicide, period, right? So what we're able to do is I'm at 60, she's at 180. I was able to talk her down to 100. And I said, why don't we just meet in the middle? and be at 80,000. And she disappeared for 1 or 2 days. I had built a great rapport with her though. So I built a great rapport with her. She disappeared. She said she had to talk to her brothers and sisters, and she came back. Actually, no, I said 75,000. She came back and she said, "You know what? You have a deal, but how about we do 80,000?" This was last week that we put the property on a contract for 80,000. So mind you guys, I already have a buyer that's willing to pay 100,000 for the property. So we put the property on a contract for 80,000. The buyer had to put down 2,000 non-refundable money. So he put down $2,000, took it to the title company, and on paper, I have a property for 80,000 and another property, and the buyer is paying 100,000. So that's a $20,000 difference. And I just send it over to the title company, and they're doing all the paperwork on the property. So they're doing a title search. They're making sure that all the heirs, everybody that's involved in the sale of the property is accounted for. They're facilitating a deed. All I did was just make sure I have a contract with the seller and a contract with the buyer, send it to the title company, and they're doing everything. That's it.
Wow, Chevy, that's pretty good, man. That's a nice application, nice exercise to that, right? So we also had another question here in the chat, and I think you kind of answered this here, but I want to make sure I hit up on it. What's virtual wholesaling, and what do you mean by that?
Virtual wholesaling is where you're not physically looking at a property, you're not physically meeting anybody. I'm in Tampa right now, and I'm doing deals in Shreveport. I'm about to start doing deals in Atlanta. I'm about to start doing deals in Fort Lauderdale. That's using your network and your resources to actually facilitate deals where you don't have to physically go and see anything. It's virtual.
I like that, Chevy. So check this out. There's two things that you got going on here, right? So you got the cash flow, which is the application what you just talked about, right? So the difference between the 80 and the 100, and that's cash flow. You're doing multiple of these transactions throughout the year. But then
that's cash flow though. That's just grinding. That's just commission.
Right.
Cash flow is where I have my rental properties.
That's what I'm getting into now, right? So now we talk about from the wholesaling, and then now let's talk about the 25 doors that you own.
Okay. All right. So the 25 doors that I've owned, I've acquired it either through subject to or seller finance. So just to dive into subject to, guys, this is something that I coach, so I'm not going to really give y'all like a whole coach subject to. Wholesaling, you can find that anywhere online, but subject to, that's you got to have a skill set for that.
Hey, Chevy, one thing, right? When we say 25 doors in the real estate community, you know what doors are, right? Before you get into doors, can you maybe explain what's doors in the real estate arena? And then, yeah.
So doors is where you have each unit. So for instance, I bought a quadplex, right? So this is a great example. My first subject to deal, I had 8 doors. So I had 4 single family units, and then I have a quadplex. So altogether, that's 8 total doors. So that's 8 people that's going to be paying money to me, rent to me. So the 8 doors, my first deal, I had a guy that he was either running in some type of mess, and he needed cash. He needed cash now, and he was willing to sell me. He's willing to sell me 8 doors, 4 total properties for $20,000. At the time, I probably had 10,000 because I was in wholesale and I was going. This was when I first started. So, I haven't done that many deals, but I saw the potential in these 8 doors. So what I did was, another one of our mentors say, look, if you don't have at least 5 people in your phone that you could call and ask for 5 or 10 grand, you got to up your game when it comes to your relationship with friends. You need more friends with money. So, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So I started strolling through my phone, and I just started calling everyone that I've done business with. And I said, hey, look, you know me. I need $5,000. I was collecting. I need $5,000 so I could take down this deal. So I finally run into two people that was like, you know what, Chevy, I've seen you out here grinding. I'm gonna lend you the $5,000. So I had two people give me 10,000. I had 10,000 myself, and I didn't know nothing about subject to at the time. So I had to pay for the education. The education itself cost me another 2,500. I had to pay for it. So I paid for the education. Within 1 day, I learned how to do subject to, and I was able to take down these properties, 8 doors, cash flowing 4,600 bucks a month. And I was able to take down 8 doors within less than 2 weeks. Subject to though. So the total value of these properties was 300,000, and I bought it for 20,000. Subject to.
That's powerful. Moses is like, wow. Wow. So wait, you bought these properties for how much?
20,000.
And they was worth how much?
300.
Wow. And you still got them?
No. I sold a quadplex. Quadplex, and I did cash out refi, went to the bank and got money off of the other ones.
Gotcha. So you cashed in pretty big.
Yes.
On the capital gains on that. That's good. That's
Absolutely, good. Yeah. Especially when it comes to paying interest on properties, they're able to actually do tax write-off. So with how my LLC is set up, it's actually a flow through. So everything is write-off. The difference is, when you have a 9 to 5, you paying taxes, and then the government tell you how much you get back, right? But when you're a business owner, you're in favor to actually write everything off. So we write everything off. We probably pay. Well, this is recorded, so I'm not going to say it. But just know that, it's crazy. This is recorded. I don't want nobody to see this.
So Chevy, let me ask you a question here, man. So with your 25 doors, what's the first of the month like for you when you're collecting rent? And then you're paying mortgages as well. What's your normal process at the beginning of the month?
Normal process, I have 15 mortgages that I got to cover. But all of them have people in them. So people are paying down the debt, right?
Hey, Chevy, I don't want that to go over people's head, but I want to make sure, right? Because most people pay one mortgage, right? How many mortgages you say you pay a month?
I got 15.
Not you, but the who pay that?
The people.
The people, the tenants. Okay, I just want to make sure that they go over the head. It's 15 mortgages that you pay. Wow.
Yeah. Other people pay. So the way that it's set up is that I have 25 doors, and the mortgages, make sure that the mortgages get paid. So if you're late by the 5th, you get charged. So everybody send me their payment, either through Zelle or through Cash App. You get that Cash App, cha-ching, or you get the Zelle message. You receive money. So everybody pays by the 5th, and I make sure that all the mortgages are taken care of, and all the personal stuff is taken care of. And that's just one stream, right? Then there's a wholesaling piece. But what I'm able to do is whatever money I make with wholesaling, I'm able to save and look for my next venture. So I'll give you this scenario, right? I have a guy that called me and said, hey, I'm looking to sell my property. I'm military. I just moved. I got a new job, but I'm not going back to that city. And I can't really sell it because I need to fix the property up, and I need a certain amount of money. So I was just going to let it go to the bank. I said, well, instead of you letting it go to the bank, how about I buy subject to? And a lot of times people don't understand what subject to means, so I got to educate. So I said, hey, look, I'm not assuming your loan. I'm going to take it over subject to your existing mortgage. I'm going to take the deed to the property. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to make sure everything is good to go. But you're still going to be responsible for the debt. But I'm going to pay it on your behalf. How does that sound?
Wow. Chevy,
Yeah,
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. Let me ask you this question here really quick.
yeah.
How old are you?
Just turned 37.
Okay, so you just turned 37 and you mentioned that you're married. And then how many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids.
Okay, so you have 3 kids,
Mhm.
married, and you own 25 doors.
It used to be 31. I sold some of them, but yeah.
So here's where I'm going. It's this one word that I would like to really just plant tonight, is which is legacy, right? Can you imagine where you're going to be at in the next 10 years when you're 47, or maybe in the next 20 years when you're 57? And out of these 25 doors that you own now, when you look at the assets, right, as far as what they're worth, and with real estate, we know it continues to go up over time. Can you talk about within the 4 years, or let's say, for instance, you started in 2018, so almost about 5 years considering we're in 2023. You don't have to get into your numbers as far as what your overall assets are worth in the real estate. But 2021 and 2020 and 2021 was a great year in real estate. Can you talk about how much those assets from when you started to what you have now, not the overall number, but just for as the capital gains in that real estate and by you being able to buy? How much have you seen an increase in that?
Well, when 2020 came around, we was able to buy majority of our properties with no money at all because people started panicking during the pandemic. COVID happened, so people was giving away their houses because they wasn't able to pay their mortgage, or this was before the government said, "Hey, look, we got to stop these foreclosure process." The banks didn't care; they wanted their money, so people was panicking. So we was able to pick up like 10 to 15 properties in 2020 itself, um,
Wow.
just just because of the pandemic, and that was just helping families out. So I have I have people that still now text me and say, "Man, thank you," because they was able to move on and buy another house just because they saved their credit and the house didn't go into foreclosure. But I was able to pick up their house subject to. So, in 2 years' time, we was able to grow our real estate business from just wholesaling, right? Just hustling and bustling every day to where we created cash flow. We created cash flow. We've grown our real estate business over 2.5 million just in asset management itself. And that's just off of the 25 door. And the return when it comes to what we're able to do is we're able to cash flow on a monthly basis. We cash flow on 10 plus thousand every month, just do rental income itself. So at the end of the year, I'm not going to tell you about capital gains and taxes, man. I'll tell you, like, this is recorded, man.
Right, right, right.
Let's just say that it's the way that it worked, and mind you, I wasn't even into rental. And my wife was like, "When you gonna buy? When you gonna hold one of these properties?" I'm like, "I'm a wholesale forever." I love wholesaling.
Yeah.
And what happened is I understood that, look, when it comes to wholesaling, it's a commission game. That means that you're self-employed. The business itself is that when you're working is when your business work. When you're not working, your business don't work. So you either scale up and hire out, or you create passive income. And through understanding the I was reading Robert Kiyosaki, and he was talking about financial literacy, and he was just explaining the dynamics between the four quadrants, right? So you have your employee, you have your self-employed, you have your business owner, and then you have the investor. And I was like, how can I go from being just an employee or a self-employed individual on the left side of the quadrant and maneuver into that business owner slash investor on the right side of the quadrant? And I was just looking at all these different avenues, these different vehicles to actually grow business. And I stumbled up on real estate. It wasn't like my mindset was, oh, real estate is where it's at. I stumbled up on it because my wife said, you know what, we need a backup. This is something that needs to be done. So with her being a great visionary and with her planting the seed and me being the innovator to go and get it, it's like she wound that battery up and was like, all right, baby, there you go. I'm gonna give you a little something. Let me see what you do with it. And that's the dynamics of having a supportive spouse, man, because, I've had girlfriends where I've ventured off into different things, and, the first thing they say, well, you need something stable, you need a security, you need a job. But when it comes to mindset, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. You got to focus on not hindering nobody or hurting nobody. Just focus on building around the right people and having the right resources in front of you. And that's what we've done in the past 5. That's what we've done in 10 plus years. But we're reaping what we sowed in the past. So there's good harvest and then there's bad harvest. So we're reaping those good harvests that we've sown.
That's so good, man. That's so good. We got about 5 more minutes here, and then we're going to close it out and ask for any questions here, right? But let me just say this right here. You mentioned risk, right? And I read this quote the other day, man, and it hit me, man. It says that, hey, look, if you do not take risk, you will wound up paying rent to someone else.
Absolutely.
And most of us, and that's not context of paying rent. You could be a homeowner, but I mean rent is like we're waking up every single morning and we're having to go to drive into a job or wake up and log into a computer and clock in or be wrapped around a cubicle, trading time for dollars. But in your particular case, you don't have a certain time that you have to get up tomorrow morning to go to a job. No. Now, of course, you put in the work. The more work you put in, the greater the harvest. Yes, and sir. So you got the callers here tonight, right? And we talk about making money in real estate, right? With no money and no credit. Mm-hmm. How do a person, like, for instance, a young man like, say, for instance, Jeff Clayton, that's in his late 20s, I think maybe early 30s. I'm sorry, Jeff, I don't really have this down, right? How do they get started in real estate with no money and no credit and being connected? It's just for like starter sake.
Man, let's partner up. I love to partner up and walk you through it. May of 2019, one of my guys, he had just started in real estate. He had his 9-to-5 job, and he called me and he said, "Hey man, I'm just getting started in real estate. I see that you're heavy in Facebook groups and you're moving deals, and I'm willing to do what it takes to be successful." I said, "Look, you just follow my lead and I got you." Mind you, he had a 9-to-5 job. He didn't have the time, but I guess he got sick and tired of just going to a 9-to-5 and not really having the time of freedom to spend the time with his family, right? So, what I was able to do was partner up with him and figure out a schedule, and we was able to actually focus on 1 to 2 hours a week to where it could really dive in and really work on his real estate business. So that was 2019, right? He had a girlfriend at the time, right? Now he's married. He have 2 kids now. Just take on more of a responsible role, right? He has several properties that he's managing and controlling, teaching them how to do the subject to and how to go about acquiring properties with no money as well. Not just doing wholesaling, but also doing the creative side also. So we was able to partner up to where I let him know, look, just because you're working a 9-to-5 don't mean your business needs to stop working. I'm here as your partner where you could call me. I could call these sellers for you. If you find a deal, we could evaluate it. We'll find buyers together and we'll be able to actually create and make money together. And he's now my business partner. So we have several properties in a different LLC together.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you for sharing that there for us, just how to get started and get connected and stuff working at 5-9. Hey, we're going to open up. So, guys, we got questions for Chevy here. Let's take them now. We'll take the next 5 to 10 minutes and questions, and we'll go from there.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chevy. I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. I'm in the Hillsborough market. How do you How do you source your deals? Like, what's your bread and butter? Is it pre-foreclosure, pre-probates? Is it tax?
Pre-foreclosures is pretty good, as well as probates. That's what we've been focused on.
Okay. And which one you haven't been having more luck on? Is it pre-probates or for pre-foreclosures?
Luck itself, I would say, as far as we've been doing more creative deals than anything, man.
Yeah.
So we've been doing more subject to deals. So, a lot of times with pre-foreclosures, you know, if somebody's behind on their note, typically it's like 5 or 10 grand, and you could do a loan modification and get that put on the back end to where you just take advantage as far as resetting the clock with the mortgage company.
Correct.
So
Okay.
Okay, Chevy. So we have a question here in the chat as well from Ruben here. It says, "Have you ever ran into the due on sale clause with your subject twos, and then how'd you get out of that?"
haven't ran into that yet, but a lot of times, we create land trust. That's a completely different beast in itself, but we create land trusts where we put the property in a land trust so it's easily transferable from a if you so let's just say the bank's called a loan due, you could just create you with the land trust. They don't actually know the owner of the trust, so on paperwork we just put it back in the seller's name. But the banks don't. Here's the thing about doing sales clause, and what I want you guys to understand: the banks don't care where the money is coming from. As long as the bills get paid, they're not sweating it. They're not worrying about nothing at all. So they just want their money. That's the first and foremost. And they don't like bad debt. So banks will take their time just to foreclose on the property because they don't like bad debts on their books.
Good, good, good. All right, more questions. Jump on, unmute.
Hey Sharon, this is Derek. How you
Hey.
doing, Chevy?
Hey, what's going on, Derek?
Nothing much. Hey, I wanted to ask you, you talk about linking up partners and stuff like that. Is there a cost to working with you on these?
We just JV, man. I believe in abundance. So my business partners now, they started out where I was just training them, and we built a right relationship to where I decided to take them on as partners. But we just JV deals, whether that's we do 50-50 split, just do coaching, mentoring, and everything like that. But no money up front. Yeah, no money up front. Just really just bring your work ethic and just a student mentality, open mind to learning. As long as you have those, you're gonna be successful. That's why I'm so excited about Atlanta. What's up, Moses? We're gonna get it.
What's going on, man?
We're gonna get it, baby.
Yep.
So Chevy, this is so important though, man, because you talk about the power of networking and connectivity, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. You came down to Fort Lauderdale, you network with Moses, and then by you networking with Moses, you got to know me. By getting to know me, now you're speaking to my community. By speaking to someone in my community, you're gonna probably have a couple folks reaching out to you, and that's just the way it works, man. Just the whole networking.
Your net worth is your network. That's what they always say, right? So you have to have the right people around you. And the great part about networking is that when someone have an abundance mindset and you have an abundance mindset, what can y'all create together? Abundance. And simple. So no scarcity, no what ifs, no I don't know if I could do it. It takes a renewing of your mind and understanding that entrepreneurship is just you betting on yourself.
Come on.
Yourself. It's not you having the security and I know what this is and what. When you're an entrepreneur, your results come from your efforts. That means that you got to put in that work. You can't worry about nothing but just putting in the work. That's an entrepreneur mindset. It's not going to happen over time. It's not going to happen right away, but it's going to happen as long as you make the right effort and move forward. That's really it. When we started the YouTube in March, what was that, 2018? or 2019?
It was 2018.
2019?
No, 2018.
20, oh, this was before we even started to do real estate fully.
You came back from the
Shreveport, Houston, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so when we started our YouTube, I looked up the definition of entrepreneurship, and it just talked about someone that's willing to take the risk for the greater reward than to rely on something that's secure for them. That's an entrepreneur. So a lot of times we see a lot of these people that have the success, but nobody don't really know, the long nights, the early mornings. I know me personally, man. I've gotten into my car and cried as a grown man, like, yo, this is crazy. This is crazy. Mm-hmm. And fortunately enough, having my wife to be that person, that rock that I could lean on and just say, I'm just calling just to release some stress, but everything's going to be all right. It's good when you have someone to talk to like that. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Man, so how does someone get in contact with you? And then you mentioned your YouTube page.
Yes.
Can you type that in the chat, or just maybe just how they can get connected with you?
So it's the Real Chevy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all around. Whether that's Facebook, social media, everything is the Real Chevy.
Okay.
The Real Chevy. That's it. The Real Chevy. Plain and simple. So the education that's provided, guys, is that we didn't have a coach or mentor when we first started.
Subscribe, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chevy. Hold on one second.
Hey guys, Chevy here.
I was just on.
A lot of people been asking me.
I'm sorry. I was just sharing with the community your actual YouTube page in itself, guys. This is Chevy here. Go ahead, Chevy.
But I done lost my train of thought now, sir.
I'm sorry.
I love listening to myself. You threw me off. I was kidding. But I think when it the crazy thing is, just to tell you about how it happened where we met Moses, is that my wife been telling me for a minute now, we need to get away, we need to go somewhere. And I just been putting it off, I haven't been worried about it. And I sensed that she was like, you really need to listen. You're not listening right now. So I was like, you know what? Let's get away. And booked the trip to Miami. And when we got to Miami, we had particular places where we wanted to eat. Well, what happened is the particular place that we were going to eat was packed and we couldn't find no parking. So, I decided to go somewhere completely different. And when we got there, there was this is kind of like how nothing happened by coincidence, right? Because when we got there, we was the only two couples. It was myself and my wife, and Moses and his wife. That was, our skin color. And what happened is they just so happened to sit us next to them. So they didn't have no other table left, and they had to break up the table so we could sit down. So when we sit down, the energy right away, right? So I'm now side of Moses. I'm like, well, he's bald headed. I'm bald headed too. He's the older version of me or something, right? Let me see what's going on. And we did that head nod. We got that universal head nod. We got that universal one. So we head nodded, and he was like, okay. And then just in that time, it just so happened that the waitress came out and did something crazy to where we now could do an icebreaker, crack a joke. And then Moses tell me about his Jamaica trip. I'm going to take you to Jamaica and show you how Jamaica really is, man. But he tell me about how he went to Jamaica. And, I was just like, yeah, we're from Jamaica, right? So that was just many different common ground that we were building with each other. I'm actually going through a raw fruits and vegetable journey right now. I'm doing a 10-day challenge in the house where it's raw fruits and vegetables, no meats, none of that. So that's what we're doing right now. And the crazy thing is, I'm not even vegan. I just saw something on YouTube. I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can do it. So that's what I'm doing. We're just challenging ourselves to cleanse the body, so this way your mind can be more sharp, your body more healthy, and seeing Moses, because I saw his Facebook page, and he's like, I lost 60 pounds just because of changing up my diet and just doing what I'm doing. So that in itself is just like, for us to be in Tampa one day, then Miami the next, then Fort Lauderdale the next. Now talking to the community, man, this in itself is just understanding what it means to stretch yourself and always stay out of your comfort zone. Because a lot of times when it comes to maneuvering and moving, people don't talk to each other, especially color folks. We don't like talking to each other. We like to mind our own business. Yeah. So, but when you understand energy and you're able to read a room and you see an individual, so learning that Moses is the recovery king. Like he's able to restructure these schools and be the president of a school, and to have such a humble personality that he have, that in itself is just a blessing, man. It's crazy.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, the Real Chevy, for coming on. Moses, as he keep alluding to, is the good friend of mine that I was in the military with, that connected me with the Real Chevy. But you guys have heard his story tonight, how he started in real estate. It just didn't start out just where he's at now. It took those small steps. So, hey, Chevy, I'm not sure if you put your contact information in there, your email. There it is there. So that's his phone number, guys. Straight up, like, hey, I was telling a little bit earlier, you hang around 4 broke people, you're going to be the 5th broke one. You mentioned as far as he was asking his friends about, loans and the deals, right? You can't ask that from broke friends, because he would be in the situation where he at now, right? So we got to be able to be connected to other that's been in the same places of not where we're currently at, but where we're going.
Where we want to be.
Thank you, Chevy, man, for bringing this mindset, because the people of color, many of these people have been on the phone. I was on this phone call now. Haven't heard of anyone paying 15 mortgages a month and owning 25 doors. That's just beyond our imagination, right? But it's your reality, and it's your reality. It's going to be your kids' reality, and that's why exposure always leads to expansion. Because if your kids can see you as a business owner and entrepreneur, right, they're going to have that same mindset when they become adults. And that's where we lack, and that's where the wealth gap is so big, because we don't have this financial literacy, or we don't have this exposure to the financial literacy of ownership. As we celebrate Black History Month, African Americans is the biggest consumer in America. If we can wrap our heads around that, we're the biggest consumer, but we're the least of investing. And here we are, have you multi-million dollars into real estate, and here's a gateway that you're opening up to say, hey, look, I can help you. If you're in Charlotte, if you're on the West Coast, if you're in the Midwest, let's partner up. You can still work your 9 to 5, but you can work your 5 to 9 as well. And eventually that 5 to 9 can retire a family like you retire your mother. So guys, reach out to them if you're looking to make some moves in what you're currently doing, because if you keep doing the same thing, don't expect different changes to come about. You got to make different moves. You got to be pivoting. So, all right, Chevy, any final words here before we close out?
Final words, definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get a different result. All right. If you don't like what you're doing, try something different.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Moses. Before we close out, man, any final words from you, good brother? Because if it weren't for you, this wouldn't have been.
No, not really, man. It's just about friendships and good energy, and as Chevy said, just a work ethic. So I'm glad, Riley. Thank you for agreeing to add Chevy and his wife to the dinner plans. Thank you for being open to good energy and additional good energy. So good stuff. Thank you, guys.
And Moses, before we close out, man, I would like to say this right here, right? Before we can have any wealth, we got to have health. If you can, man, maybe in the next just 2 to 3 minutes here, right? Can you share how much weight that you've lost in the last year?
Yeah.
And what else done for you?
Yeah, I was 201 pounds. I'm 168. So I've lost about 32, 33 pounds. I feel real skinny. You know, I got a little skinny neck now, you know.
Yeah.
But baby, can you press mute real quick? She's watching Sisters, so I don't have long. But I just my A1C was high, my cholesterol was high and stuff like that. So I was like, hey, I got to make some changes. So I stopped eating meat. I only eat fish now. Kind of going more with the Dr. Sebi stuff. Made some minor adjustments over time. I drink 2 of these a day, which is a half a gallon. At first it was tough, but you just learn how to make small adjustments, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. And before you know it, you're eating so clean, you can't help but to lose weight. Mm-hmm. I'll leave it there.
Man, that's good, Moses. I want to bring that in there, man, because we always talk about wealth, especially in this community. But again, you can't have wealth without keeping your health as well. So you've had an impression, inspired both me and Chevy when we had dinner on Saturday as far as watching you. So we're watching you, brother. So keep doing what you're doing. All right.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Chevy, thank you again, man. I look forward you to continue to make big moves. We're going to continue to follow you. We're going to be reaching out to you guys. Reach out to them. You guys information in the chat. And then for the Let's Win financial community, for all the ones that's on here tonight and we'll be watching this video as a recording, thank you guys for investing your time, energy, and effort tonight and being able to grow your financial literacy to be able to diversify other than what you're currently doing now on a 9 to 5. Let's get it. Let's continue to take care of these nuggets and maximize on these opportunities that's before us. As always, let's continue to win, be blessed, and we will see you guys. Have a great week. All right.